Let's talk about France, though, because over there, across the channel, from where the migrants come, the French government falls as MPs oust Barnier. Basically, it all happened last night. Let's talk to John Laughlin now from the Catholic Institute of Vendée in France, Western France, I believe. John, very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike.
Hi. I mean, I could ask you what's it like to wake up in a country with no government, but, I mean, it's probably better than waking up in this country, to be honest, with the government we've got.
Well, as it happens, I'm in a hotel in Amsterdam right now. But
oh, are you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
There you
go. Well, I mean, it wouldn't really make much difference because, of course, France was essentially without a government for 2 months over the summer, following the dissolution in July, and Macron took ages to appoint the new Prime Minister, who turned out to be Michel Barnier. He's going on television tonight, Macron, to speak to the nation, and of course, people hope, or at least expect, that he will appoint a new Prime Minister. But the fact is that what this shows is a much more long-term problem, even more than the month of chaos that have ensued since the European elections. It shows really the collapse not just of this government, but I would say more profoundly of the whole system that has governed France now since the 1970s. The centrist, centre-left, centre-right system, of which, of course, Macron is himself the absolute embodiment. That has really now literally gasping its last breath. The problem being that there is the largest single party in terms of seats and in terms of votes is, of course, the Rassemblement National, the National Rally of Marine Le Pen. They got 11 million votes in the elections. But they have lined up against them the centre, the centre-right, the centre-left, and the hard left. So they have, although they are the
basically
biggest,
everybody else,
than in favour of them, and that is an insurmountable problem. It's just I don't see what the way out is.
No, because presumably never the twain shall meet, because all of those other parties that you mentioned, who never want to see a Marine Le Pen in any kind of position of government, will continue to stand against any success that she may try and have. So, I mean, you're kind of back to the beginning, aren't you?
Absolutely, and indeed this latest, the events of yesterday, will only aggravate that, because she is getting the blame for having brought down the government, although the motion was put down by the left and she then supported it. But for some reason, it's all her fault. And the centre-right, if you like, the equivalent of the Conservatives in Britain, if we say that she's the equivalent of Farage, the centre-right, Barnier, of course, comes from the centre-right, now hate her even more than they already did. They ganged up against her in the July elections, as did every other political party. So yes, the division will be even greater, and I just can't see a way out of it. I mean, they're trailing now a whole list of retreads or would-be retreads who might go to Matignon, who might get the job of the government, but. You know,
will anybody try and suggest
on its last legs?
Will anybody try and suggest another election or a change of the system?
They can't.
Will the people revolt?
Because the rules are that you can't have 2 dissolutions of Parliament in 1 year, so they have to wait, according to the Constitution, until July. Right. It's a provision of the Constitution, I suppose, to prevent presidents from dissolving the Parliament at will. Right. He's doing so too often. So they really are in a complete pickle. And while, of course, the borrowing costs in France are now higher than those of Greece, the whole, and by the way, France is in a similar position to Germany. I mean, I know you're asking me about France, but we have the two major countries in Europe are essentially, I mean, Germany still has a government, but the governing coalition collapsed a couple of weeks ago. They have got elections in February. So these two powerhouses, if you like, of the European Union are both in a complete state. Neither of them have a proper functioning government. Meanwhile, the budget, the French budget, is totally out of control. They're spending 50 billion a year on interest repayments alone. It's soon going to be the largest single element in the budget. The situation really is absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah. And will it have a knock-on effect in some ways to the European Union and the running of the EU? Because obviously, as you say, the two major sort of huge countries in Europe are sort of, you know, disappearing before our very eyes.
I think it will because, well, firstly, there's a procedure underway. Brussels has taken France through a procedure to punish it, as it were, for having a budget deficit which is twice the permitted level. So, of course, you know, that will stymie any kind of activity by the EU. But this comes at a time, this dual, as I say, weakness, Franco-German weakness, at a time when the European Union is trying, I think absurdly, but trying to profile itself as a major geopolitical actor on the world stage, in particular, of course, with respect to Russia, in the context of the imminent arrival of the man they hate most in the entire world into the White House. And Europe, the Brussels institutions have as their, once again, I think absurd fantasy that they will somehow take over the leadership of globalism now that Trump is back in power. But of course, in reality, they can't, because if two major countries are in a mess as they are, then it's very difficult to see how the Brussels institutions alone can do that.
Right. It's a fascinating time to be alive. John, thank you very much indeed. John Lachlan there, reporting into us from Amsterdam. He's a member of the Catholic Institute of Vendée in western France. But, I mean, France right down in the bad brown stuff, paying £50 billion just in interest rates alone. Germany going a similar way. The European Union whole project. I mean, I love to hear from these, Remainers who go, well, one of the things about Brexit was that it damaged Britain. Oh, yeah? Well, it seemed to damage Europe a lot more. So, I mean, I'm quite happy to be in Britain, supposedly damaged by Brexit, rather than in France, which is on the brink of going bankrupt with no government. Germany on the brink of going bankrupt with a new government coming in, which might save it because it's right-wing.